is the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. This is Championship Ranks. Brandon Lewis, Josh Ungar here. Josh, you know how excited I am for this show. I cannot hold my smile enough. And in the words of the great Skip Bayless, how about them Philadelphia Eagles last night kicking off Monday Night Football against the Kansas City Chiefs?
I don't know if Skip Bayless would say that, but I get where you're going with that.
Hey, listen, we got a great show for you guys tonight. As always, again, you can see they're down in the banner. Subscribe to Championship Rings on YouTube at Championship Rings 216. Follow our other social media platforms on Twitter at Rings Champion, Instagram at Rings Champion, Facebook at Rings Champion 216. Once again, we are in collaboration with the one and only Voltage Live and Mr. Unger. We have a packed show today. We are talking NFL. We are talking NBA. We are talking college football. We are talking AEW Full Gear. We are talking Survivor Series. But we would not kick off this show without talking about the most watched Monday Night Football game since 1996. That being the Philadelphia Eagles defeating the Kansas City Chiefs 21-17. My Eagles winning that game that was watched by a combined on ABC, ESPN, and ESPN2 of 27 million people.
I mean, it makes sense. It's a Super Bowl rematch. We saw how the game went back in February, which that was not a holding call. I don't know what the refs saw, but we can have that discussion on a different day. But I'll tell you this. My biggest takeaway from this game, well, I have two actually. One for the Chiefs, one for the Eagles. So the one for the Eagles is great job by the Eagles on they saw that A.J. Brown was getting double teamed. And what did they do? They went to Devontae Smith. They went to DeAndre Swift. And those guys responded. You and I had both been questioning Devontae Smith, challenging him a little bit, asking him
No,
to
no, no,
step.
no, no, not me. You were. Not me. You. I want to
Okay.
make that clear right now. You were. I was not.
Okay.
I was the one saying Devontae Smith is fine, and you're the one saying they're throwing the ball too much to A.J. Brown. Go on, Unger. Continue your point before I unleash.
Okay. Anyway, so let me rephrase that. I have been questioning Devontae Smith. Not to say he's not a legitimate wide receiver because he won the Heisman Trophy at the University of Alabama, for God's sakes. And he's shown it. But I needed him to show me a little bit more consistency. That's all I was asking from him. Like, if the defense takes away A.J. Brown, can you step up and be that primary target for Jalen Hurts? And you know what? He showed that, yes, he can do that last night. That was my biggest takeaway from the Eagles. Also, the fact that DeAndre Swift is a workhorse. You just give the ball to him, he'll go to work. Okay, for the Chiefs, do you think you should have paid Tyreek Hill? I do, because right now, all you have is Travis Kelce. MVS isn't getting it done. Kadarius Toney, I mean, he made some plays in the Super Bowl, but did he even play last night? I can't remember. Uh, Sky Moore, he didn't do anything. Justin Watson, okay, he made a couple good plays, but nothing that I can distinctly remember other than like the first touchdown or whatever. And you also like the Chiefs offense just flat out needs to be better because that defense is playing incredible right now. Chris Jones was awesome last night, and Kansas City's offense is just stuck in neutral. 3 straight games, they've been shut out in the second half. The only reason the Chiefs beat the Dolphins in Germany is because they got the defensive touchdown in the second half. Otherwise, Miami would have probably come back to win that game.
Now, it is my turn to really tell everybody out there what happened about this game last night. Because
I
let's
didn't do a good job talking about it.
not as good as what I'm going to do. Because I am really going to tell you exactly what happened in that game last night. And here's what happened. In the first half, my offensive line played the worst game they have played together in about 10 years. Lane Johnson had a bad half. Jason Kelsey had a bad half. Cam Urgis, who I mentioned to you last week right here on this show, I had said Cam Urgis being back at right guard was going to help in the run game. He struggled in pass protection last night, and Chris Jones dominated that first half. We couldn't run the ball. We couldn't pass the ball. We were lucky to get out of there with one touchdown. And yeah, maybe it was a hold on Zacchaeus, but guess what? That's called karma from the Super Bowl. Then the second half started. And what the Philadelphia Eagles did that they did not do in the Super Bowl, they adjusted. With new defensive coordinator Sean Desai, they started blitzing more. They started with Reed Blankenship and a spy defensively, starting to limit a lot of Kansas City's offense, forcing them into third and long. Because how many times last night did Patrick Mahomes step up in the pocket, looked like he was almost down on the ground, was able to fling a pass out to Kelsey or to Watson or to somebody else to convert a big third and long. That was a big story of the first half. But then on offense, once the Eagles decided that they are crashing inside, they can use the quick screen game with DeAndre Swift, with a little bit of Boston Scott running the football, with Devontae Smith, and use that to their advantage to beat that Kansas City blitz. And once they got that first down on every single drive, that's when they started going. Jalen Hurts did not have his best game. The Eagles' offense did not have their best game. And yet, it's what I keep telling you over and over and over and over and over again about this Philadelphia Eagles team. It is so hard to beat this team. They can beat you by running the ball for 300 yards. They can beat you by throwing the ball for 300 yards. They can beat you by pitching a shutout defensively in the second half. The Eagles punted last night more times in a game than they've had over the last 2 years. The offense was not moving the football. The defense kept them in the game, and the offense made the plays when it mattered. And Jalen Hurts at the deep shot to Devontae Smith that Patrick Mahomes did not hit. Now, on the Kansas City side of it, I completely agree with you, except besides one thing. We saw Kansas City last year win the Super Bowl without Tyreek Hill. Do they need another wide receiver? Yes, they should have went out of the trade deadline. They should have went out and paid a second round pick for a Chris Godwin. Or, I know Denver wasn't going to do it within the division. Godwin's the big name that comes to mind. But some wide receiver outside of Mecole Hardman who could separate and help out so that the defenses don't have to double team Travis Kelsey. Bottom line is Kansas City's still good. They're going to win a lot of games. Their defense is getting better, and they are still the favorite to me in the AFC, just like the Philadelphia Eagles to me once again proved last night. They are, without a doubt, right now as we sit here tonight at the end of week 11, the best team in the National Football League.
I mean, their record does say they are the best team in the league, so I'll give you that one. But while you are correct that the Chiefs went out and won the Super Bowl last year without Tyreek Hill, they had Juju Smith-Schuster, which sure he hasn't made a huge difference in New England, but at least he was that reliable wide receiver that Mahomes knew he could go to if the defenses were double teaming or triple teaming Travis Kelsey. Without Juju, Mahomes doesn't have that go-to wide receiver other than Travis Kelsey this season. MVS hasn't shown that he can be that go-to wide receiver. Rashid Rice hasn't taken the next step forward. Sky Moore hasn't done it. like I said, Justin Watson made a couple good plays last night, but nothing where it's
And
like,
then
oh,
dropped key pivotal third down catches back to back in the fourth quarter. That's been Kansas City's
exactly.
bugaboo. It started week one against Detroit this year. It's continued over. They, for some reason, are not catching the football. I don't know if it's the way it's coming out of Mahomes' hands. I don't know if they flat out just can't catch. But it seems like all of these Chiefs receivers are dropping a lot of passes. Um, I will say this: their scheme defensively this year has changed. They trust their corners more, but they are almost one dimensional. They,
Yes.
they should have hit the play to MVS, and we all acknowledge it. He should have caught it. It should have been a touchdown. It would have left Philadelphia time to go down and potentially, hit a tying field goal. But in the end, outside of 1 to 2 deep shots a game, Kansas City cannot throw the ball deep down the field. They don't have that. I know McCole Hardman was brought back, but he hasn't really done a lot. They don't have that guy that takes the top off the defense and you have to worry about every single play. They have to nickel and dime you down the field 3, 4, 5, 6 yards at a time. And when you're living on that the whole game, and we're seeing it, Kansas City averaged only 5 points in the second half this year. Defenses are going into halftime. They're adjusting to it. They're playing, the receivers a lot more shallow, and they're daring Kansas City to go deep because the likelihood of you being able to nickel and dime your way 4 or 5 yards down the field for 3 or 4 consecutive drives, you're going to make a turnover at some point because NFL defenses are just too good.
Yeah. The other big takeaway, you talked about how the Eagles made adjustments. What were the Chiefs doing a lot? They were blitzing their corners, Trent McDuffie especially. And the Eagles were able to counter that with either counter runs or they would run Jalen Hurts. So that speaks to the adjustments you were talking about by the Eagles.
Yeah, and I knew going in to the first half, I thought Philly was going to struggle in the first half coming out of a bye. Also, because Nick Sirianni has a history. I don't know if you remember the game last year at Indianapolis. It was the game right after Frank Reich got fired. Jeff Saturday was the head coach of the Colts. Nick Sirianni and Frank Reich had a very special relationship. Sirianni, former offensive coordinator with the Colts before he got the Eagles job. And Sirianni had said going into this game Monday night that he was sitting in his office during the Super Bowl dropping F bombs. And Nick Sirianni, listen, my best friend's Italian. I know Italian people. They're very fiery. They have a chip on their shoulder. And sometimes they can get very emotional. And I think that sometimes Sirianni gets too. I've never seen it before from a head coach where he gets too hyped for a football game before, and it takes them a half to settle down and be like, okay, boys, let's figure this out. Okay. And then they go on their run in the second half. Listen, I think Philadelphia, we're going to talk about it a little bit later on the show. They obviously have a big game with Buffalo. And after that Buffalo game is another big test here, week 13 against the San Francisco 49ers. But for all this talk about, Philly hasn't beaten a good team yet, the Eagles once again just showed you last night that in prime time, they usually 99 out of 100 times show up. They play their best football when it matters. And when you add the best offensive line and best defensive line in the game, which Josh Sweat and Hassan Reddick just took it over on that last drive, Jalen Carter as well. The Eagles are going to be in almost every single ball game just because of that. That's going to win you a lot of games in this league.
Yeah, you have to put the Eagles away because the the Eagles don't look like the same team as last year. It looks like they've taken a little bit of a step back, which I'm not saying that as an insult to them or anything. It's hard when you get to the Super Bowl. You're going to go through changes, and you might not be as good of a team as you were the previous season. But they still have, as we documented, they still have Jalen Hurts. They still have A.J. Brown. They still have Devontae Smith. They still have their core pieces. But I am concerned a little bit about the Eagles' offense without Dallas Goedert, because
Yeah.
I need to see someone from that tight end position step up and try to fill that void. Not
Well,
be,
I'll tell you right now, for the next 3 weeks, you're not going to see it. We saw it last year when Goddard was out. Goddard is basically the tight end position. He is supposedly going to come back for the Dallas game, week 14, but for the next 2 weeks, it's going to be, replacing Dallas Goddard with basically Julio Jones or Zacchaeus as a fourth wide receiver, because Stoll is a blocking tight end and Katera can't stay healthy.
yeah, I think Katera got hurt last night, actually.
Yeah, he did again.